Hey, you made it. Thank you so much. The response to this event has been off the hook. My name is Angela Loria. I am the founder of the Author Incubator. I'm joined today by Danielle Miller, best-selling author of Smarty Pants Branding. And today we are going to be talking about how to use your personal brand to write a book and fill your client roster. And wow, you guys really wanted to come to this. We've had hundreds of people register. The conversion rate on our landing page was like 70%. So I don't know what's going on, but I think branding is important to people, Danielle.
I think it might be.
So we have a lot to share with you in the next hour, and we really want this to be interactive. So here's what we're going to do. On the screen, you will see a chat window. Might say questions, might say chat. Just look around, you'll find it. As we're talking, whatever's coming up for you, your questions about branding, about your book, about filling your client roster, using a book and a brand, go ahead and drop those into the comments. I am going to occasionally pick up my phone. I will not be Facebooking. Those of you who know me and love me may think I'm just dashing off a quick comment to our Authors in Transformation group. I am not. I will be looking for your comments so I can share them with Danielle. We're going to answer your questions as we go, and we really want you to be a part of this as a discussion. We also have a couple little goodies for you, one of which is keep an eye out for a link to Danielle's book for free. So she has graciously gifted each and every one of you a copy of her book, Smarty Pants Branding. And so make sure you grab that and check that out. It's obviously going to go a lot deeper than we can go in the next hour. But I want you to take this time to learn from Danielle about how she has become one of our authors of the month, one of our featured authors. So I'm going to start off, and I'm going to imagine you all applauding as I do this, but I'm going to start off by presenting you, Danielle, with our Author of the Month award, our March. It's a little book.
So
cool. So that's for you. I'll give you your box so you can put that in there.
It's freaking adorable.
And your Danielle's face is also plastered here at the Author Castle on a plaque forever. You are our third Author of the Month in very good company.
I know.
And it's, a lot of people want to know, like, how did I pick these Authors of the Month? And the truth is that some of it has to do with how many clients you got from your book. Some of it has to do with how many books you sold. Some of it has to do with what media attention you got. But really one of the biggest transformations and one of the biggest differences a book can make is in how you have transformed as a person. Mm-hmm. And so that was a big part of why I selected you. I know you have gotten many clients, 20, maybe even more than 20.
Yeah, I think you had 22 on there. It's more than that.
Yeah, clients from the book. But that's really, it's a side effect, I think, of the way you've changed.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk for the next hour about Danielle's transformation into being the person worthy of the title best-selling author, and see if you can spot yourself in here. And in the process, we're going to talk a lot about branding as well. So let's roll back the clock a little bit and tell me where you were before I met you with your book writing process. So I know that you had started a book before we met. How do you think you were different as a person, and how were you tackling the challenge of writing a book?
I had stopped and started writing a book several times before I was in your program. And I think beyond the fact of not having the time to do it, or saying that I couldn't really organize the information the way I wanted to, which that was my big.
Was that your big thing?
That was my big thing.
If that's your thing, take note.
Yeah, you need to take note of it, because even when I was in college, when I was in graduate school, we had to write an outline for a thesis paper, and did that. And then we had to write the paper, and the professor actually wrote on the actual paper we turned in, "This is more organized than your outline." So I've always had that stigma of trying to organize things in a linear way. And it was like, well, I can't, because well, this and this goes with this. And so that was my big resistance around it. So I kind of just threw up my hands. I was like, well, I'm just not going to write the book. I'm not going to do it. But I really wanted to. I really, really wanted to write the book.
Did you want to write the book, or did you want to have written?
I wanted to have written the book.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't really want to write it.
Okay. I was curious. Some people actually do.
Yeah, I wanted to, and I actually considered, well, maybe I'm a ghostwriter. I was like, no, because I felt like nobody would capture my voice the way I wanted it to come across. So I canned that pretty quickly. But yeah, I bought all the do-it-yourself programs to write a book, and just could not get it done. And I think a lot of that too was the idea that I just didn't want to own my expertise.
What did it feel like it was about? I know you mentioned like organizing the information. Like what was the more information you needed to be ready?
Oh, I think one of my strong archetypes is sage. And for a sage, we're always learners. So there's always one more course we can take. There's always one more program we can do. There's always one more certification we need to have before we feel like we're ready to own what we already do know. So for me, that was a big obstacle, a big challenge, which I've learned to since work through. But that idea of just, you never feel like you know enough. Like there's always going to be somebody that knows more than you do, or their perspective is more evolved than yours, or, there's always that resistance, I think, around it.
Yeah, when I started, one of the first programs I offered was called Book Writing 101. And I had this brilliant idea that I would have people go to the bookstore and pick out books that were similar. And like everybody quit. They like went to the bookstore, they saw all these books, and they're like, oh my God, they definitely don't need another book on whatever my topic was. But there are certain businesses and certain book ideas, I think, that are more vulnerable than others. And I know for me, writing a book about writing a book was like, I have to get this right. Like I had seriously like 10 times the number of meltdowns my authors have, because I released my books kicking and screaming. And I feel like branding is so similar, because it's such a public thing. I mean, it is our public face, and now like you're going to be the expert on it. Well, the branding in that book sure as hell better be good.
Right. Exactly. And that's another piece of it too, because you want to make sure that you're walking your walk and talking your talk and all that. And so there's this expectation that has to be perfect. Things all the stars have to be perfectly aligned before you can get your message out there. And the fact of the matter is, with a brand, it's never going to be done. I mean, I don't know. I hate to disappoint anybody out there, but you're never going to have the perfect brand. You're just not. Your brand's going to grow. It's going to evolve just like you do. You're a person.
Did you know that though before you started your brand?
No, gosh, no. Before I was like, I have to have everything just absolutely perfect. I have to have a certain number of clients before I could feel like I could say I was an expert. I had to have so much blog content done before I could feel like I was an expert. I had to be quoted or I had to be on so many interviews and podcasts before I felt I had that level of expertise. So yeah, I got in my own way all over the place.
And so when you were thinking about writing a book, like you mentioned, you really wanted a book. Why do you think you wanted it? What did it seem like success was going to get you or make you feel, or like why was that on the goal list?
I think for me, again, going back to sort of the archetype framework, as a sage, one of my supporting archetypes is sage, and that having that level of credibility was really, really important to me. I felt like if I put a book out in the world, that would really cement my positioning as an expert in branding. And so I wanted that for myself. I wanted that was a level, that was one of the ways I defined success for myself.
So I don't want to give away the ending here, but did that happen?
Yes, it did. after, if we fast forward, now I feel like there's a level of arriving, but not being at the final destination.
Nice.
You arrived here, but then there's the next place to go.
Well, we're going to hear more about that in a minute, but I want to dive into in the decision for who to work with on the book. So you tried to do it on your own. Something made you think, hey, maybe I need to hire someone. So I want to talk about in general, when you're working with somebody on something like a book, or maybe a website might be similar. How did you pick to
kick my ass, to hold me accountable in some ways for what I knew I was capable of, but didn't quite believe for myself.
All right, we got to give people a little bit of a drill down. You've mentioned the sage, you've mentioned the sovereign. What are the sage and the sovereign? What is this part of? What are you referencing? And then how does it help you? Because you're using it.
Yeah. So when you download the book, you're going to read a good part about what I call the archetypal framework, and it's really about your brand identity. And it's an innate way of tapping into your strengths, of figuring out how you naturally lead with yourself. I'm actually, my leading archetype is an alchemist, which is all about vision, and we're big picture people, but not so much on the ideas and the details and getting things done. So I knew I needed a sovereign, which is Angela's leading archetype, who is very detail oriented, very much the responsible, we're doing X, Y, and Z, and I expect to see it, and you're kind of like, okay, then I better do this. So, that's part of, it's part of really drilling down into your brand, and it helps you develop your brand voice. It helps you figure out what your brand gifts are and strengths in a very natural and, aligned way.
This is why when people are working with me on their book and they want me to help them with their book title, I just say, go work with Danielle. I can get you a book done, but call this lady. But no, I do think knowing your archetype, knowing more about your brand before you start on a book journey or a web project or, other sorts of business, but if you're opening a brick and mortar store, knowing what the gaps are in the way you're going to self-lead. And, we've actually had, this doesn't happen anymore, but God, probably 2 years ago, we had somebody come into the program who was probably also like a very high sovereign who wanted to run a book program her way. I mean, she'd never done it before, but she had like a very specific plan. And I was like, hey, this isn't a fit. This program works this way.
Right.
And I think even with branding, even though we don't think of branding as a way to say no to clients, it kind of does sieve out the people that you are going to be a fit for and not.
Absolutely, because you draw your line in the sand, and you're not for everybody. And that's another thing with the brand. Your book's not for everybody, and you're not for everybody, and that's okay. That's totally okay, because you don't want to work with everybody. Like you said, you had somebody come into the program who's not a fit for it. That's not going to be fun for anybody. It's not going to be productive for anybody. Nobody's going to get anything out of it. So the more clear you are in your brand and your brand message, which develops really when you write your book as well, the clearer you are for your right people, for the people you really want to work with.
Did you have a goal to attract clients with your book, or was it really more for credibility and to say you had a book, like how you positioned yourself?
I think that, again, it was really all of that. I felt like once I had positioned myself and had the credibility, the cachet that a best-selling author would have, that would help attract the type of clients that I wanted to work with. That would, would read the book, and they would be the people that would resonate with my style, with my brand voice, and, that would come into my orbit,
So we dropped you into the author. Oh, hold on. We have some questions before I ask my next one. This one looks good. This is from Tracy. She says, how soon in an author's career should branding start? She says she doesn't have anything published yet. What do you think?
It starts now. You're a brand if you do, and you're a brand if you don't. So you need to start now figuring out, what exactly are your core values? What's your mission? What's your why? What's the message you want to share? That all becomes part of your brand, and that helps. Actually, I think it would probably help your book writing because you'll be really clear about how you want to show up in your book. So.
Yeah, I think that's true too. There's a lot of foundational work that you can do around your brand that's going to help you. I know you said, Tracy, that you're a novice writer and you have nothing published yet. A lot of people think the only thing that counts towards writing is their word count. So they're like, I wrote 500 words today. I wrote 5,000 words today. And like, that's great. Word count is important, but the clarity that you get from understanding your brand will actually help you write faster when the time comes.
Yeah.
Robert's got 3 books and he's only sold 5 copies. Oh, Robert, what to do? Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about marketing, but I think when you have a brand that resonates, that is one way that you attract book sales. Mm-hmm. So how do you know, like your title, your cover, some of those pieces that people can see before they read the book? I know there's a lot of your brand personalities in the book too, but if we're just thinking about the cover, the description, mm-hmm. How do you recommend that people, because Robert, here's my advice to you, is going to be to redo your cover and your title mm-hmm. After you have a branding session with Danielle. So what are some of the types of things that you would want to tell someone like Robert?
I think, again, the cover of your book, the title of your book really is supposed to represent your brand vibe. It's how you want to come across. Obviously, my book, you can see it's a lighthearted, it's a little it's a very friendly looking cover. The title is, a little
sassy.
Yeah, it's a little sassy. It's a little in jest, but not so much. And it was a title that I really latched onto when we started. I want the book to be called this because I feel that it attracts a certain type of person to read it. So getting clear, really, and that's where you come in on who that ideal reader is, who exactly should be reading this book is so important. And I think from that, then you can kind of really figure out, okay, what cover is going to really attract those people? What's the title going to be about that's going to reel them in to read this book?
Awesome. So Melissa already mentioned that Melissa mentioned that she liked your phrase, own what you know. Mm-hmm. So Melissa, I'm going to challenge you. What are you ready to own that you know? Drop that in the comments, Danielle, and I want to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you have this dream, you want to write a book, you find me and you're like, she's a sovereign, she's going to hold me accountable, I'm actually going to do this thing. Mm-hmm. And then we drop you into the author incubator and 3 months later a book comes out. I assume it was all super easy, no challenges?
Yeah, I just sat down and
write it.
Look, I wrote a book.
Magic. What were some of the hardest things for you, some of the biggest surprises about the incubation process, the process of becoming an author?
So again, I have to kind of go back to that archetype framework. I'm a sage, and it was really, really important to me that the information in the book, like, you would use it. Like, I want you to read that book and I want you to use the information in it. That was super important to me. And my editor, she got that, and she made sure that it came from that perspective of, and obviously all the books that people write, they want people to use that information. But for me, that was like the first, like I I want this book. I don't want people just to get the book and just have it sit there. So we made sure that it was really geared towards an easy read. And that was another thing, like, well, it's only this long. And Angela said, well, that's as long as it needs to be, because you've said everything you needed to say. And I'm a big fan of concise and brevity. So that fit well. But I think also that, the other challenge was, you're writing, and you get feedback, and, you have to figure out, you have to put your ego aside a little bit and figure out, is this in the best interest of the message and of what I'm trying to get across, rather than, well, I wanted it to phrase it this way. I think having that objective eye was really, really important.
Do you feel like there were times when you thought you might not finish, times when you wanted to quit, times where you felt like it was too hard?
Oh yeah, there were many nights when I would just sit there and just bawl over my keyboard because I was just like, I can't do this.
I've made over 100 authors cry.
Yes,
my proudest accomplishment.
Yes,
I don't think anyone's come through the program and not cried.
She's got a perfect batting average on that. Did I ever think I wouldn't finish it? No, that was not an option. No, I did not ever think that.
So before you were in the program, were there moments when you didn't think you were going to?
Oh yeah, I mean.
So what is that difference? I'm like so curious about this because everyone says it. There's nobody who's come through our program and hasn't finished their book.
Yeah.
So what's the moment when you get dropped into the incubator, like when you cross that threshold?
Because we're all scared of you.
Because
Angela's coming to talk to me. She's going to get on the phone with me. No, I think it's, I think a lot of it is the space that you hold for everybody to have that belief and commitment. Because I know you so well, I feel, and I know that you truly believe, like everybody that comes into the program and everybody that is writing a book with you has an important message to share. And it's so valued and so worthwhile that it's just not an option for you not to get it out there. And it's going to be your work, but the program will allow you to do what you need to do to get it done.
But my thing is, like, now is so much better than later. And I don't think everybody necessarily feels this way. Like, this is just my personal bias and the author incubator bias is I would rather see you write 5 books than to write 1 in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather see you write 5 books over 10 years than to get that one out that's perfect in 10 years. Because, like, here's the thing. And so, like, I think our books are 10% less perfect than they would be if you waited 10 more years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm, like, willing to make that trade. That seems like the right trade because I feel like there are so many people out there. You work particularly with people who are changing the world, like people who are taking major stands on important issues, who are committed to making a difference. And I know how much you're going to help them. And so if people have to wait to find you because you're not willing to, like, claim that space, then I'm going to, like, do anything I can to get that message out sooner because I feel like the world needs us right now. I feel like the planet is speeding up and we have to show up in a way that doesn't always make us comfortable.
And you're not going to get any better until you do the work. I mean, you can't, if you wait for things to be perfect, you're not doing anything to get better, to get, to that perfect, which doesn't exist anyway. But, that's the thing. You're not doing the work you could be doing. And serving. And again, it's a matter of dropping your ego and thinking about really how you can serve.
Yeah, totally. So what was the biggest challenge that you faced in getting your book out, whether it was writing or the launch, being seen, telling people you were writing a book? Like, what was the lowest low? And then we'll talk about the highest high in a minute.
The lowest low was people knowing I was writing a book.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, that was the lowest low.
Because you were afraid that like if you didn't get it done, they would judge you, or
yeah, there was that, that what if it didn't actually end up getting published? I would get judged about that. And also, again, it was, which ties into that whole owning your expertise. I had to own it. I had to say, I'm writing a book about this topic I'm really, interested in, and I find it endlessly fascinating, and I have learned, I'm continuing to learn about it, but I feel I have enough.
But do you feel like it was like you're writing a book, like about branding?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Definitely.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Well, sure.
Yeah. Aren't you cute?
So how did you get over that?
The pain of not knowing the potential that I could have was worse than sitting with that. I'm gonna get all teared up.
I know, me too.
Yeah, that was by far more painful. The fact that I was just, I was hiding and not owning what I could be capable of doing and helping people I could, help, and doing work that I really love doing. So
how did you get to that? Was that from coaching? Was that from personal work you did? Because people work really hard to hold that knowledge, like this is what I should be doing. This is what this is. I mean, there's a lot of Oreos that.
Oh gosh, yeah.
That keep that thought at bay.
Yeah.
And glasses of wine.
Yeah. And Cheetos. And
yep.
Definitely. I think it was a combination. I think, of coaching and personal, growth that I went through, many a night of wrestling with myself and my thoughts and that kind of thing. And asking, well, is that true? Katie, Byron Katie.
Gotta ask,
is it
true?
Is it true? And, most of the time it wasn't. And so then what's stopping you?
All right, highest high. What was the best part of the experience from signing up until right up until your book?
So there was two. Can I have two? Because one of the highest highs was signing up, was having that conversation with you, and
that's usually the high, by the way.
Yeah.
People are like, yes, I'm gonna write a book, and then I'm like, here's your first assignment. Yeah. And they're like, wow, why did I do this?
Yeah, so you're up here and then you're down here. But then you get back up here again. So my book launched last year on my husband's 50th birthday. So that was like the coolest thing ever. And seeing that email, getting that email from Angela in the morning, your book hit #1 in 4 categories. And I was like, wow, I will never forget that moment. That was incredible.
It's awesome.
And it's something that you have forever. It's an experience that you have forever.
All right, Sage says she already told her whole community she's writing her book in order to hold herself accountable. But when she did that, her writing actually slowed down. And then she says this, and Sage, I'm going to talk to you about this one, but you can jump in if you have something too. She's like, I got to get back into gear. So I want to talk to you about this because this is the writer shame cycle. So Sage, we want to lean into why you're not writing. So rather than do this whole but I need to get into gear. I need to get my butt in a chair. I got to get words down. Your inner author is like a 7-year-old girl, and you're inviting her out on a play date. And when you come to that play date with the admonishment of, you've got to get back into gear, we have to play Barbies, it is not the most appealing play date ever. But if you show up with like a basket of Barbies and a cupcake or whatever it is that would make your inner author want to come out, that is truly where you're going to be able to write from a place of freedom and joy and connection. And here's the thing, I actually don't care if you write from a place of freedom, joy, and connection. It's just that's what's going to make a bigger difference for your reader. So it happens to be more fun for you, but if you can approach this slowing down in your writing with like wonder and curiosity, I can promise you there is a message in there. There's a reason you slow down, because your inner author is trying to communicate something to you, and she is begging you to listen. So I just really want to urge you to like dig in and listen to that voice. Did you have writer's block come up or periods where your writing slowed down?
Yes. Yeah, I did.
Did I tell you the same thing?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. Just, yeah. And I think, you know, the other thing is not everybody's accountability piece is the same. So yeah, telling your community, maybe that's not the trigger for you. Maybe it's, you know, maybe it's something else. Maybe it's, you know, it's making the commitment to yourself and instead of a whole bunch of other people. You know, maybe it's having one person that holds you accountable for certain things, you know. Maybe that's not what's clicking for you, is being accountable to a whole community of people.
And that could be what you're being asked to lean into.
Yeah.
And so just get really, really curious. Melissa also wrote back to us. You want to hear what she wants to own?
Absolutely.
She says, great question. I need to own my ability to express myself confidently. Too often I feel like a whirlwind of ideas buzzing around in my mind, and I get caught up in writing or because of the idea that I need to write because this will be permanent, so it needs to be perfect in round one. Melissa is the first person on the planet to have had that thought.
So can I just say too, based on the language that she used and what she said, I bet if she took the brand identity quiz, her leading archetype would be a creator. And I
love it. Go take the quiz. Where do they take the quiz?
At DanielleMiller.com.
Awesome. Danielle M. Miller.
Yeah.
Double M.
Okay, so creators have millions of ideas all the time, right? They're not happy unless they're creating. They're very inventive, innovative. You know, they've got lots of things. They stop and start projects all the time because they'll start something, think it's not going to be good enough, I'm going to drop it and go on to the next thing. They're perfectionists. So again, they'll often create something, immediately see how it could have been improved upon or made better. And the problem with this is you never get anything done. You don't produce or create to your potential because you're constantly letting that shadow side of your creator in and struggling with your inner critic or the perfectionist side. So, you know, I would invite you to settle on one idea and see what do you need to put in place to see it through.
Yeah. I always recommend, especially because it's election time, whichever candidate you like the least, put some money in an envelope, an uncomfortable amount of money, address it to that candidate. And if you don't finish your book by that date, make somebody you love send it to that candidate you hate. Exactly. Awesome.
Ouchie.
All right, a couple more questions, and then we're going to talk about what happened after your book came out. So, Jeffrey says there are times when my writing slows down, and then even a week or even a month later, I learn something new about my topic to enhance my writing. So I have things to say about that, but do you have something to say about that?
Well, I think that, you know, you're going to continue to learn things about your topic.
Yeah.
I still learn things about branding and different perspectives and different ways of seeing things. You know, that's never going to change, and that's a good thing because that's going to give you information for your next book. So you need to get that first one done so that you can use it.
That's what I was going to say too. No, perfect. So we have an absolutely unreasonable deadline in our program. It's 3 months. That is not enough time to write a book, except it actually is. Because what I find is that people are always learning, particularly on a topic they're passionate about. And so what happens is people start writing, then they learn something new, they go back and change it, they start writing again, they learn something new, they go back and change it, and they don't end up finishing their book. So we put a really tight writing window around our books. In fact, many of our books are written in 3 days, which sounds ridiculous, but it's actually easier to write 30 or 40,000 words in 3 days or 6 weeks than it is to do it in 3 years or 6 years, because you're changing so much. The book is a moving target. So I would just, Jeffrey, if that's working for you, have at it. But if you want to get a book out there and you find you're not, time bound it and then limit those inputs and do exactly what Danielle said. When you get a new idea, have a folder called next book and drop those new ideas in there, but stick with what you've got. Yeah. I don't know who you are, K10, but that's a cute name you've got there. Katen. Let's make your name Katen. Anyway, what if I know what I want to write about, but I don't know if I want to tell a story or write a guide? So this is really, this is a case of like the format of the book. You know what the topic is about. So you could have written an allegory about branding. Sure. You could have written a guide. You could have written a short story about branding. You could have written a novel. How do you know what is the right format?
I think getting really clear on your brand voice is one way to do that, because you know if your style is very conversational, then you're going to have that come across in your book and you're going to tell stories. So in my book, it's a combination of, here are the things that you need to have in your brand, and here are some examples, here are some stories of how that evolved for certain
Are there
clients.
certain brand archetypes that would be like awesome for writing, let's say a novelized version or a story, and then another archetype who like you should do a step-by-step guide?
Right, yeah, sure. So if your leading archetype's a sage, sages are very information-based people, so they like things laid out, very sequentially. They're very good with infographics and things like that, things that lay out information in a concise way. If you're a creator, probably telling a story around that information is going to be more beneficial to you. If you're an alchemist, then probably what you want to do is you're all about the possibility of potential. So that how that information could change somebody. So a before and after transformational type story would work very well for you.
Do you feel like if you did a session with Katen, or K10, whoever you are, but that getting clarity on their brand archetype would help them pick that type of genre? I love it. Awesome. Oh, Melissa took your quiz twice. She's a creator and a seeker.
Yep.
Nice. She already had you pet. You didn't even need to take the quiz. Just ask a question, and what I'm going to do for the rest of this is Danielle is going to guess your archetype based on your question.
But yeah, seekers, see, that makes sense too, because seekers are always looking for greener pastures. Seekers are always looking around the bend, looking for the next curve in the road, and they're never, quite able to settle themselves because they have such an adventurous spirit, and everything is an adventure for them. So yeah, I would say probably your leading archetype is creator, and one of your supporting archetypes is a seeker. So yeah, that's a challenge, but knowing that now, knowing that those are your archetypes, you can really look at what the challenges are that you're having around writing the book and figure out what kind of accountability and support you need to put in place to make it happen. So let's talk about what happened for you when the book was done. And I want to talk about this on two levels. Let's start with the earthly plane. So how has your business been different since your book has been out? What's the before and after in terms of clients, how quickly you convert clients? Has your business grown? Has your list grown? What's happened? Give me the before and after story with your business. Yeah. So before, I think I struggled to, get clients in the door. I didn't really feel like my platform was well developed. My brand message, I'm an alchemist, so I see all the shades of gray in things. So taking a stand was kind of, I really shied away from that. And in doing so, I really diluted my own brand that way. So having the ability to get really clear and concise on what I believed about branding and write that in a book was invaluable for positioning, for credibility. I had over 30 clients from when the book was published. And how about the year before the book was published? Oh my gosh. I would say I had maybe 2 a month, something like that, very drips and drabs, feast or famine type. So you probably doubled your client load, and it was more consistent. Yeah, and it feels so different. Oh my gosh, it feels completely different. Plus, I developed a business model from having the book published. You really thought about how did I want to work with people, develop a group program from the basis of the book, actually. What do you think your average revenue, if you totaled up all your clients from the year before the book and then divided by the number of clients, what do you think the average revenue was before and after? Do you think that changed? Oh,
the amount people invested?
yeah. I would say my business doubled easily, probably over that. So.
And now I'm going to ask the second half of the question. We'll come back to it, but I just can't resist. How much of that do you think was because of the knowledge that went into the book versus the way you changed as someone who is able to write a book?
Oh, completely the way I changed. You know, the knowledge is really secondary to.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's just.
You think it's like when I figure out the program, like once I take another certification course and I understand how archetypes, but it's totally like you were somebody I would invest with. You were like, oh, she's a best-selling author. I think I'll invest in her. And then you felt like a best-selling author. So you were being a different person.
Right. You actually be a different person. And that in and of itself is very magnetic to people. Because, you know, you have that confidence, and it's not in a, a bragging way or anything like that. It's just a very comfortable, quiet confidence that you have in the work that you do, and the change. Again, I'm an alchemist. I'm all about transformation. The change that you can affect for people, like you know it in your bones, in your soul, that's the work that you're supposed to be doing, and you've really been doing your right people a disservice by not showing up and doing it. So you do the
and
work.
You know that too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I've underserved you.
Absolutely.
What any cool opportunities come out of having the book? Like, were you asked to speak, or did you get any surprise phone calls, emails?
Yes, I got a surprise email from Arianna Huffington, who had asked me to put my book into her editor to be chosen for their book club. And so that was very exciting. Yes, that was but again, I probably never would have thought to, I actually sent her a draft of the book, and she, emailed me about a week or so later, about having it featured. And so that was, something I would not have done had I not written a book, not had the confidence, and really owned that. And again, a woman that I greatly admire, someone who's confident in herself and has run as an amazing business. And so why not?
Yeah.
Why not be email buddies with Arianna Huffington?
And I assume the year after your book was pretty personally boring, no major activities, just working 40 hours a week.
Yeah, no, I don't know. No. It was very, the other thing about writing a book is it gives you the opportunity to just connect with amazing people. People who really want to change the world in some capacity, and who are vibrant and are just, they're focused and confident, and, there's just sort of this no holds barred approach to life in general that you get to, you start to really have those people in your life, and it's amazing the difference that makes.
Do you feel like the people who came to you were different?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I was really clear on the type of clients I wanted to work with, what their mindset was. It's another whole piece of it too. And that expanded as well. So it's just sort of this abundance ripple effect that happens.
Love it. Okay, so those are some of the things that happened on the outside, on the earthly plane, some physical changes to the way your business grew. What do you think has happened to you over the last year personally, as someone who finished a book, as a best-selling author, as someone who has been in the Huffington Post, as someone who's got a regular business with 30 or more clients? Like, how do you think you have changed?
Well, I think that again, you sort of just vibrate at this level. If we want to talk other earthly plane here, you really have this vibrational energy that's at a different level, and it just attracts other energies that are at that same level to you. So it's opened up, partnership opportunities for some different things that I'm really excited about. You just feel more aligned. I mean, everything just feels so much more aligned. You feel like, work, it's an effort, but not a struggle, right? There's effort involved, but it feels good. It feels like a really good workout. You feel great afterwards. There's not the struggle.
This is the thing is, I think what people buy from the author incubator is having their book done, having that almost like guillotine off their neck, right? That like, oh my God, I told people I was going to write a book. I've wanted to write a book for 20 years. Like that will be gone when you work with us. And like we promise that and we deliver that, and that's great. But the real value that I think we give people is who they step into.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that's like those personal transformations are what I get so excited about. Like people's hair is different. They dress differently. They end up rebranding their website, which is why I'm always sending people to you, because they realize their website is like, weird clothes left over from high school or something. It
doesn't really reflect who they are.
Right. And you really become the person who wrote the book by doing it. Like, of course you would. But you think what's going to happen is you're going to become that person, and then it'll be so easy to write the book.
Yeah.
But it's actually hard to write the book, and then you're that person.
That's exactly right.
All right, we have a few more questions here. By the way, 88% of you said that you were getting the information that you need. So I'm glad that 88% of you are getting value. Hey, other 12% of people, can you just write a question so we can just talk to you directly and make sure you get the information you need?
What do you need?
You have a branding question, you have a book question. We want this to be 100% satisfaction. We're not B+ girls. So drop your questions in. Sage, the bestseller status we're talking about is on Amazon. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, it's a nice credential. Like if you're going to write a book, you might as well be a bestseller. But two, and more importantly, when you get that bestseller status on Amazon, Amazon's algorithm finds other people who bought similar books, and they send them advertising on Facebook and on Google. And then they'll also actually send emails to people who bought books in the same categories as yours. So we want to leverage Amazon's vast network of email addresses to help you find new clients. So that's why we care about that.
Cassie Park's another author in the program, and I will often email it because we'll get notifications based on your recommendations. You should buy this book, and I'll email them like, I got a recommendation to buy your book.
Well, we love it because like you're getting
so cool.
an email about Cassie. Cassie's getting an email about you, but so are another 1 million people.
Yeah.
Who otherwise, if you called Amazon and be like, hey, can you email 1 million people about my book? They'd be like, yeah, not so much. I'm not going to do that for you.
We joke about it, but it's so cool.
So cool, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Kimberly wants to know, Danielle, she says she took your quiz. She came out as an alchemist. Are you guys taking this quiz right now? Go take it now, because then you can ask questions while we're on here.
Yeah.
But I struggled with each question because so many different answers seemed applicable. What does she do?
Okay, that happens all the time. So you're not alone in that. That happens a lot. And I actually have a more in-depth assessment that I do with clients. This is sort of scratching the surface where you learn your leading brand identity. But that it's meant to do that because I really want you to draw a line in the sand. I know that there are things that when you look at some of these questions, you're like, oh, well, it could be this or this. I want you to pick one, and I want you to base it on where you are right now in your journey, because that's really where we want to start. We want to start with where you are. And then we look at sort of the aspirational things, but that's the idea of this. It's meant to make you choose some things that you normally might say, well, I'm kind of this, I'm this and this. So
all right, you're up for the challenge, Kimberly. Go for it. Hollis mentioned how important is it to line up a publisher while you're working on your book? Very important. I'm going to address this one. The publisher might have requirements that would help you avoid rework later on. What's your stance on this? It's more than the rework. I want you in this for you. I don't want you in this for the best interest of the publisher. Obviously, at the Author Incubator, we have a publishing imprint. We publish Danielle. We've published several hundred authors, but that's not the point. The point is, what do you want to come out of your book? And so, for instance, if one of the things you're looking for is more clients or more speaking opportunities, you need to know that a traditional publisher that only makes money when your books sell and doesn't get any money when you get a client or when you speak isn't going to be invested in getting you speaking engagements and clients from your book. Obviously, they're not making any money from that. That's not what your partnership is based on. If that happens to happen, that's fine, but they don't really want that for you. If you know that you have a new level of leadership to step into, like Danielle has talked about, self-publishing is a great option for many people, but that's not going to give you that sense of stepping into leadership. That's stepping into more of like a mule role, like a service role. You're kind of becoming your own VA or hiring a VA. And so when you work with a publishing company that has experience, that can make sure your book is at a quality that obviously you couldn't make sure your book was at that quality if you've only ever done, if this is your first book and you don't have a team of people with, you know, dozens of years of experience behind them, then you're not going to have that leadership shift because you're not being led to that next level. So you want to match the publisher with your goals. And if your goal is to just say you wrote a book and to have that personal sense of pride that you did something, I'll often talk about building a chicken coop. There might be something fun about getting your family together to build a chicken coop in the backyard. And every time you look at it, you could say, gosh darn it, we did this. But if you were going to start a chicken farm, if you were going to start selling eggs to your farmer's market, you probably want to have some professionally built chicken coops. It's not just about having a moment of, you know, pride in your ingenuity. So I think self-publishing is great if you want to write a book that's really for friends and family, that's a personal accomplishment, a check off your bucket list. If you want to have a professional piece of your personal brand, I think you should work with someone like Difference Press. There are other publishing companies like us who will get you a professional product, but also support your own growth as a business. And if your real goal is to sell lots and lots of copies of your book, but with no back end for yourself, maybe you want a TV show, maybe you want some sort of national exposure for a charity that you're running, then a traditional publisher is a great option because they have the widest distribution. It's not going to be the most lucrative solution for you, but if your goal is more reach rather than depth of impact, then a traditional publisher can be the right way, and you want to get ready for that by building a list of 20 to 30,000 people and really mastering marketing so that a publisher would want to invest in you. So your publishing method 100% affects how you write it, and I do recommend that before you write your book, you decide how you're going to publish. Did you think about other options for how you were going to publish?
I did, yeah. I had some programs about writing a book proposal and submitting it traditionally, and self-publishing. I didn't want to go through any of that. I knew that's not it. That was not for me at all. And I didn't want to wait. I didn't want to with a traditional book deal, and I wanted complete control of my book. And that's something that you get with Difference Press. So there were some options to think about and figure out, but I knew what the purpose of the book was and what I wanted it to do for me. So yeah, that's what I made the
awesome. Choice. So has your outlook on using a book for branding changed since you have a book? So the advice you might have given before you had a book, is that different now? And whatever it is, what do you think is a book's role in somebody's branding strategy?
Well, I think that, I always recognized before I had a book published, that having a book lends you a level of credibility and cachet that just really shortcuts the whole, your platform, your message, all of that would take you much longer time to build and cultivate. So there was that. Now, obviously, having written a book, I can speak firsthand that yes, it has absolutely done that for me.
Do you think it's something that should come sooner in the process now than you might have before?
There's no one size fits all, but I would say as a general, yeah, I think so. I think, I was doing this for 5 years. I was doing brand specializing in branding and brand coaching. And so, yeah, so, you know, compared to the growth over that time and the growth over the last year, I mean, it's, you know, completely different. So yeah, but some people have to be ready when they're ready. And so I think, you know, I don't like cookie cutter molds or blueprints or systems or formulas, but definitely doing the work and putting your message into a book is certainly going to shortcut your goals and what you want to achieve, however you have defined success for yourself. So there's that. What was the other part of the question?
It was really about a branding and a book. Like, is it an important part of the strategy? Are there certain archetypes that a brand would be more important for?
I think
or that a book would be more important.
Yeah,
a brand is important for everyone.
Yes, it is, absolutely. I think, and again, a brand or a book, you know, is maybe not right for everybody, but I think that when you step into any kind of, you know, you become an entrepreneur to some degree, even if you have another gig that you're doing. When you write a book, you become an entrepreneur. You become a business unto yourself and the work that you do. So it's, you know, I think that that's a huge piece for having the level of success that you want to have, is to have a book.
All right, I have a super fun question for us.
Oh, gee.
Danielle and I shared a client. One of my authors, Sophie Savage, I sent over to Danielle. I know you loved working with her too. And somebody just asked us, what happens if your book with Difference Press goes big and then large publishing houses reach out to you? Does that ever happen?
Yes, it does.
So we're going to tell you about our client, Sophie, who we love. Go find her book right now. It's called The Cancer Whisperer. You actually helped her with that name, didn't you?
I did. She, you know, we talked about it. She actually came up with it. I can't take any credit for coming up with the name, but I was like, yeah, that's absolutely 100%. You need to stick with that. It's so fit with the message that she wanted to share about her experience. And, you know, we worked on some things with her brand, some elements and some of the visual pieces of her brand.
And that's all what's so cool. So Sophie wrote a book with us. She published it about 6 months ago. She immediately got calls from major publishers. She has over 6 figures in book deals at this point, and it's still racking up. And when her book was released, it just came out on March 10th. So definitely check out Sophie Savage, The Cancer Whisperer. Mm-hmm. What you'll notice is the branding work, both in terms of the design and the name, carried through even when she went to the big publishing house. They actually didn't even change. She added a chapter in her book. They didn't change any of the work that really she did with us. And it's because it was so on point that they were able to take her on quickly, give her great advance, and also get her book out quickly. Yeah. So yes, it does happen. We love it. We have a few authors who have gone to traditional houses, and when they go to a traditional house, it's a very safe bet for that publisher because they know they've got the right book out when they make the decision. Mm-hmm. Tony, we've only got a couple minutes left, so I'm going to rattle off these questions. And by the way, if you are thinking of writing a book that makes a difference, if you're interested in the process that Danielle went through, there is a link on the screen. Go to www.theauthorincubator.com/apply. You will learn more about us in that process. There's a ton of details as you go through the application. And so there's a lot more that we'll share, but in the few minutes we have left, I'm going to rattle off a couple more questions. Tony's ghostwritten 12 ebooks. I was a ghostwriter for 17 years. I have so many ideas for different books to write. I don't know what to do first. Can you brand yourself with different book genres? Would you do a different brand, like if you were writing romance and self-help?
No, I would not. You are the brand, Tony. So ultimately, it all falls under the umbrella of Tony, awesome ghostwriter. You know, that you would, each genre that you have would be its own separate part, but overall, you're the brand, you're the writer. So that's how you position yourself. The genre doesn't really make so much of a difference.
Awesome. It's really about the personal
It's
brand.
about, it is. I think at that point, yeah, absolutely.
Well, you guys, Danielle Miller is the author of Smarty Pants Branding, and I think you will agree with me. She is a bit of a smarty pants herself. First of all, congratulations on being our March featured author. You're going to be hearing more about Danielle all month. Please check out her book, take the Archetype quiz. And if you are thinking about wanting to write a book, then reach out to us. We would love to hear from you. And Danielle, thank you for being with us. Any final words to people who want to write a book?
Yeah, just, hey, Nike, just do it.
Nice.
Just, you can do it. You absolutely can do it. You can. It's got to be on your own time frame, but you can do it.
I love it. We believe in you guys. We're so honored to have spent this hour with you. Thank you for taking the time to spend with us. And I always end these by reminding you, Danielle is just one example of how at the Author Incubator, we're changing the world one book at a time.